race fans, Ryan Aho here, and purple laden Bert Lehman. I love it. God, you look good in purple, man. I gotta be honest.
This is my diecast sweatshirt.
High, wide, and handsome. I like it. I gotta get you a little Vikings, Vikings to go along with that purple. You're a closet Viking fan.
Well, the high school I went to, our colors were purple and gold. So
I'm just saying. Everybody wants to be a Viking.
It's actually funny because when the Vikings wear their all purple with yellow numbers, they look like the high school uniforms, the football uniforms that my high school had.
I hope your high school can win more playoff games than the Vikings. Just say I hope that happens because it ain't been very good. We're loyal, if nothing else. But bringing you episode 165 here of the One to Go Show, of course, brought to you by our friends over in Watertown, South Dakota, our very own Trevor and Ron over there at Dirt Track Supply. If you need anything racing, tires, parts, safety equipment, fab work done, bodies, bumpers, you name it. If you need a new chassis, they have the Aero chassis. They have it all over there, folks. Get a hold of them guys in Watertown, Dirt Track Supply, and huge supporters of racing. They've been doing it a very long time, and they're great at what they do. So give them a call. But on today's show, Bert, got a lot of pretty fun stuff here. We're going to do some race fan feedback. We had some fans of the show send us some questions. We're going to touch on those. How about this? The Cody Mallory effect in dirt late model racing. Our top 10 super late models after speed weeks that came to a conclusion here this past week. A recap from the final week down at Volusia. A Wissota driver doubling up down in the desert. Pretty cool to see some Wissota guys parking in victory lane. And our picks, bold predictions. But first, let's go to a blast to the past. Of course, brought to you by Impact Health Sharing. So, if you're self-employed, if you're an employee and you got to pay for your own health care, if you're a business owner and you got to pay for health care for a lot of employees, and if you're paying too much, shoot me a call, 218-969-1380, or text me, or hit me up on Facebook if you can find my page, because I had to get a new page because it disappeared. I think I'm being censored by Wissota. I'm not really sure what's happening there, but get a hold of me and I'll see if I can get you a quote. I've been able to save people a lot of money. You can go to any doctor looking to keep a lot of money in people's pockets so they can spend it on racing instead of healthcare. So let me see if I can help you out. Impact Health Sharing. But last week, Bert, I mentioned, pardon my cough, I still have a little bit of that parting gift I got from my dad. I love him to death, but it's a gift that seems to keep on giving. So I have a little bit of a tickle here, but bear with me on that. But last week we mentioned the Chikulski family, the legacy they have in dirt track racing in the Northland, and he was a number 64. And I talked to Dennis here this past week, and Bert, you remember I mentioned that Dennis he was one of the first guys in a modified up in the Northland. Well, he confirmed that. Him and Al Utnan, and Al, I'm not calling you old. Love you, man. I'm not calling you old. That was Dennis that did that, not me. Okay. But they were the two, sounds like the two first drivers to have them. And I got a picture here to post for fun. I know it's last week, but Dennis said his first modified, it was not a lethal. It was not an MB. It wasn't a $30,000 roller. It was built in his very own shop. They did it themselves. It was a 72 Torino frame with a 78 Mustang 2 body and a 351 Cleveland Ford guy underneath the hood. And tell you what, racing is a little bit more expensive than it was back then, Bert. So kind of cool to be able to kind of share a little bit of that. And as far as his grandson, Evan, I mentioned he had a couple wins here in the past couple of years. He was a track champion, Bert, in the Midwest Modified Division over at the Helverline Speedway. So tip of the cap there to Evan. Let's see if he can do it again this year. But 165 this week, Bert. Episode 165. I don't have any 165s. Do you have a 165?
I do not have a 165.
How about a 65?
I have a 65.
I have one from Eastern Wisconsin, and I'm guessing you have it. And I was always curious about this guy. I know he's a pretty good runner.
Before you say his name, say the sponsor from the car.
Well, the picture that I have is red, but was it Miller?
No,
No,
Bud.
that was MJ. But
Budweiser.
it was Bud. That's why it was red. Okay, it was a beer sponsor. I thought I remembered that. Initial CB.
Huh? CB.
Initial
yeah.
Yep, CB. That's so I didn't know much about him. I literally, there it is right there. That's the car I remember. I went to the Wasota 100 in Marshfield, and I brought some film with me back before digital cameras. Right, you had to be lucky enough to have mom and dad buy you a couple rolls of film as a kid. And I do have a picture of his car, but why don't you go on and tell the listeners who we're talking about?
Yeah, Chuck Buckby is the driver we're talking about. He actually got his start in racing on Shawnee Lake, ice racing. I actually have some pictures. Actually, a photographer I knew, he gave me a bunch of negatives that he took of race pictures that he took in the 80s at Shawnee Speedway. But it mixed with those were some ice racing pictures. So I have some pictures of Chuck Buckby ice racing. But yeah, Chuck Buckby raced at Shawnee Speedway, got started in the hobby stock / sportsman division, won at least one championship in that division. There's actually a cool photo from the mid 80s of MJ McBride and Chuck Buckby. They have their cars kind of parked slanted, and they each have the American flag because it was 4th of July, I believe, and they set fast time in their division. So it's kind of a cool photo. And he eventually moved up to the late model division and was one of the top late model drivers, not just in eastern Wisconsin, but in the entire state. And late model championship at Shawnee Speedway always he just couldn't quite grasp one. He came close many times, but he's probably the best late model driver to race at Shawnee Speedway that hasn't won a championship.
The Dan Marino of Shawnee late models. There you go. Right. I mean, pretty much all the championships at that time were either Pete Parker, MJ, or Amlink, wasn't it?
Yeah, from except for 1982, from 1980 until 1999, all the championships were won by either MJ, Terry Avalink, or Pete Parker.
Right. Well, who was the other one that won it?
Lowell Bennett won it in 1982, okay. And he maybe would have won more, but it was shortly after that he ventured to the dark side of racing and embarked on asphalt racing, a very successful asphalt racing career. In fact, he's still racing on the asphalt in the super late model division.
Nice. Any more 65s, Bert?
I do not have. Oh, actually, I do have another. It just popped into my head. Another late model driver. Well, I believe he raced modifieds before late models, but Dean Mauer. He raced late models in Northeast Wisconsin in the 1990s. Not for a long time, but I would say for the most part, he was a mid-pack runner, but he was competitive. Probably one of the things that I remember was I'm pretty sure it was him that was in this accident. Him and Mr. Excitement, Terry Casey, got together at the Oshkosh Speed Zone in Oshkosh. And if I remember right, Terry Casey took his helmet and threw it at the driver's window of Mauer's car.
I can't see Mr. Excitement doing that. Absolutely not. Now you're making stuff up. Never a dull moment with Terry Casey. I'm going to knock on wood here. People say that there's a chance that he might be back in action this year. And as a race fan, that's great. I love watching that because there's something going to happen with Terry Casey on the racetrack. So I'm hoping he gets back behind the wheel this year. Have you heard any more in the last couple of weeks?
I haven't heard anything more than what has been said on the racing telecast.
Okay. Well, I have a couple here as well. One of them I was actually kind of scanning through Facebook, and I found a post that I was tagged in, and my name still showed up, but I had no longer a tag on there because I have a new Facebook page. But Josh Moulton, Lauren Inman posted this one, street stock driver down in the Princeton area. So if you're a Princeton guy or gal that's been in that area, you know a little bit about Josh, share a story. I have a photo here, but share a little bit about him. We'd love to hear. I heard he was still racing maybe a couple of years ago. I don't know if he still is today. And then another one I have here, modified guy in a successful career in the USRA, in the USMTS mods, but Tommy Meyer, a driver from Blooming Prairie, part of that contingent of modified drivers from southern Minnesota that are very, very good. And man, I mean, nothing against USRA, USMTS. I mean, they have great programs, but man, I miss the days where that whole area was Wissota, Bert, because you had some of the best drivers down there competing with, you know, the rest of the Wissota guys in the area. And I'm kind of missing that a little bit because there's some studs down in that area right now as well. But we never get to see them at a Wissota event, which is unfortunate for race fans. Now, another one I have, the last one I have. So Tom Nesbitt's right-hand man, one of his right-hand mans, I guess probably one of his little proteges, Ben Brost. He's had a great career in announcing, especially over in central Wisconsin area. I know he was the announcer when Scott Duvall actually ran the track over in Unity, that SK Speedway it was. But I was looking back, and Bert, I had no idea that the Brost family was so heavily involved with racing. And looks like it's I believe his uncle Gordy Brost, a super stock driver, raced like Marshfield. I guess it would have been, I don't know if it would have been Unity at the time, but that central Wisconsin area, they had a racetrack. I don't remember if there was another one there, if it was that particular one, but a successful driver, had a sharp looking race car. Posted a picture here. If you're watching it online, you see it. If you're listening to the podcast, maybe jump on and check it out. There's some great photos here. I kind of steal a few of them off of 2020 racing history. Kind of a cool format there that Troy and Jonathan Powers put together to showcase some of these drivers. So check out some of his stuff. But Gordy, I don't know much about him, but I know a lot about Ben. And I tell you what, he's kind of like me, Bert. He's not afraid to really share his opinion, ruffle some feathers, hurt a feeling or two. Probably why he's so tight with Tom Nesbitt, because that's kind of our fit there, so to speak. But Gordy Brost, if anybody has a great story about Gordo there, share it on the comments here. We'd love to hear it. And if you have a favorite 65, you know, or a 165, if you have one, share some pictures in the comments, send them to us. We can post them. We always love kind of taking a trip back down memory lane and talking about some of the drivers of the past. So Bert, what do you say we get into a little race fan feedback? And before we do, though, a quick shout out to buyraceshirts.com. You know, this is the time of year, if you're a racer, a track promoter, a series promoter, if you're a business owner, if you have a club, if you just need apparel, hats, hoodies, t-shirts, you name them. They do a great job down in Montevideo, Minnesota. Check them out, buyraceshirts.com. You can get any quantity of shirts. They have different programs there. You can talk to Jordan. He has a great crew of people over there that'll take good care of you. So buyraceshirts.com for all your racing apparel needs. So Brad asked, okay, he's one of our boys. He's in our Pick'ems contest there. And he had a question there, Bert. So we hear, especially when it's like late model events, they're always talking chassis. Beginning of the year, Longhorns dominated. Bam, Rockets are back, right? So his question was, I'm kind of paraphrasing it here, does chassis brand matter more in late models than it does in any other class? And he specifically mentioned like sprint cars. But, I mean, you can relate that to sprint cars, to modifieds, whatever it may be. But does chassis brand matter more in late models than it does in everything else, or is there something more to it? What is your thoughts? I have some thoughts on this as well.
I don't know if it necessarily matters more, but it seems like you definitely hear about it more in late model racing. You know, when this question was first posed, it's like, you know, when you watch a sprint car race, you know, World of Outlaws or whatever, you don't necessarily hear the announcers talking about what chassis the drivers are racing and stuff. Where with in a late model race, sometimes the announcers, you know, well, even when they introduce the drivers for a late model race, it's, you know, Jonathan Davenport, sponsored by blah blah blah, racing number 49 Longhorn. You know, they include the chassis name in the driver intro in some instances. So, you know, I'm sure chassis matters in other divisions also, but it just doesn't seem to be as publicized as it is in late models.
Yeah, I would agree totally. And as a racing enthusiast, somebody that's kind of in the know to some regards, I like hearing that. And I like hearing it all the way across the board, whether it's Wissota Super Stocks or Wissota Midwest Mods or A Mods or whatever it is, sprint cars. It's fun for me to hear the chassis brand, the engine brand, you know, and I think that's so maybe some of the late model announcers are just that much better, right? They're that much more informative. Nothing against Johnny Gibson. He's good. I use sprint car guys. Relax. Okay. He's good, but they don't mention it. And I think that, you know, I don't know that it matters even that much in late models, right? No, I mean, obviously you need to have a good car, but I remember Jimmy Owens, a quote he had, he said, car's just a car. It's just a bunch of tubing. The four tires touch the ground. A car is just a car. You know, if you listen to the car and you understand, you know, all the adjustments and all that, it'll speak to you. You make the right adjustments. Really, any car can go fast. And, you know, you look at the modified division. I could not name like the dominant modified right now. There's a slew of them out there that are crazy fast, right? There's a whole bunch. I couldn't name just one and say, man, that is the one. Late models at the beginning of the year, we were like, Longhorn is it. They're dominating. Rocket is done. Okay, we were wrong. I was dead wrong. I'm like, man, I don't know if Rocket's ever going to win a race again. But here's the deal. Brandon Shepherd's sucking it up, right? So the Longhorn deal, Longhorn's a good car. It sure is. But the Wells Longhorn is a good car, right? The Rumley Longhorn setup is a good car. So I don't necessarily think it's the chassis brand, so to speak. I think it's the person making the adjustments, the person tuning on the shocks and making the right calls. Any car can be good, right? But the fact is, who's making those adjustments and who's tuning on it? And Bert, we see this all the time, especially with, I don't know how to say it without saying it, I guess, but you have the young racers, right? The young racers, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Mom and dad got a lot of money, did stuff right, whatever, got in a good position. They go out and they buy a car, right? They go to a chassis brand that's kind of hot at the time. And they go buy this car. They're like, oh man, we're going to chassis brand X, right? Because they're on top and they know what they're doing. And the kid struggles. And the kid's like, not running very good, and all of a sudden this chassis brand over there, oh, we're going to go get that chassis brand. That's the chassis to be in. You see them bouncing around. Well, it's a dangerous game because what they're relying on is feedback from that chassis brand, from the chassis people and all of that. If they can't make their own adjustments and if they don't have somebody to kind of help them night in, night out, it don't matter what chassis you have, you're going to be terrible, right? You're going to have to kind of learn what you're doing, learn the trade. In the flip side of that, some of the best in the business, they could drive a wheelbarrow. It don't matter, right? I mean, you take a look right now. Hudson O'Neal was fast at the end of the year in a Longhorn. He jumped it, in a Longhorn, jumped into the Rocket, absolutely bolted. You know, so it just doesn't matter. Some people, they just jump into a car and they're instantly fast because they really understand suspension. So hopefully that answers that for you there, Brad.
Well, and that's the key too, is I think a good driver who knows, that understands suspension, you know, understands that, you know, if I do this to the car, this is what it should do, you know, as a response. And So, you have to, I'm not saying you need to have an engineering degree, but I mean, you need to at least understand the concepts. I mean, don't the Mars brothers, don't Jimmy and Chris have engineering degrees?
They and AJ, I think, does too.
And I mean, look at Alan Kwiecki. I mean, he went down south to race NASCAR with, basically nothing, but he understood the engineering and he knew what to do to a race car to make it fast.
Absolutely. So, I guess I'll segue into this is if you're a young driver out there and you're wondering, oh man, is there something to this chassis game? Well, there probably is. I mean, you go to, there's certain places you can get cars that maybe ain't as good or whatever, but most cars these days are pretty darn good. They're pretty equal. I mean, you look at, late model division, there's several different chassis brands. Yeah, there's two that get talked about most, but there's more than just those two that win races. The fact is, if you want to be successful in anything, no matter what it is, master your trade, be a student of the game. Don't just be a steering wheel holder, right? This ain't Days of Thunder. Don't be Cole Trickle and be like, oh, I don't have to do nothing. I'm just going to hold the steering wheel and go. The more you understand your race car and shocks and setups and all of that, I promise you, it's going to help you on the racetrack as well. Now, I may have been the guy that overthought stuff once in a while, so maybe you don't go quite that far, but just having a good understanding of stuff is going to go a long ways because, these chassis builders, right, they can't sit there and babysit you every single night. It just ain't possible. And then all of a sudden they're the bad guy because they ain't there to help you. Well, take some time and learn some of this stuff yourself. I mean, you're spending a lot of money. Why not understand what you're doing? So Jeff asked us, Bert, and this was a good one here too. I really like this one. He said, should local tracks have pre-race pit parties similar to like a Monster Jam type deal? Okay. So how about pre-race access in general? Okay. And he added to it, he said, with race teams leaving so early, and this doesn't matter if it's a national event or local weekly stuff. I remember the World of Outlaw late models come to Hibbing on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, whatever night they came that year. And by the time the races were done, they were loaded up and they were gone. Fans never even got a chance to see the drivers after the races. Weekly racing, same thing. These promoters are having shows with 8 classes, 4 5-hour programs. Fans are wore out. They're leaving. That culture, Bert, of after the races that I fell in love with, that fan driver interaction, it doesn't exist anymore, right? And should they have something before the races, whether it's every week or occasionally, to create that vibe? What is your thoughts?
I mean, it definitely, there's no downside to having something like that. This isn't necessarily a pit party, but Shawano Speedway, they have weekly advertisers each week, a different race sponsor each week. And those race sponsors are allowed to set up outside the grandstands if they have, and if they sponsor any race cars, those race cars, those drivers are allowed to bring their race cars into that area too, and they can stay by their race cars, and the fans can look at the cars up close and talk to the drivers and that sort of thing. So Shawano Speedway does that quite often. Like I said, I mean, it's not a pit party per se, but it's an opportunity for fans and drivers to interact before the races, and for fans to see some race cars up close. And the way Shawano Speedway is configured, they park them like right by the ticket office, so you can't miss the cars. I mean, if you're buying a ticket, you're going to see the race cars, and so that's one of the cool things that Shawano does.
Yeah, I got to get over to that place, Bert. I might have to do that this summer. Come up and enjoy the big half mile there with you. And you hit the nail on the head. Anything you can do to get that fan driver interaction, that's what made, in my opinion, racing in general, NASCAR, dirt racing, all of it, so much different than pretty much every other like big sport, right? Is the fans have real access to the people they're watching, to the drivers, to the participants, to their the heroes behind the wheels, so to speak. And that used to be a big thing. All the pits used to be in the middle of the racetrack, pretty much everywhere. Most racetracks have moved their pits outside. A lot of them are a long ways away, right? Like you go to Hibbing, for example, the pits are on the back side. It's all the way on the opposite side. It's a long ways to get down there. You can no longer just walk down the steps and you're basically in the pits. That's not a thing. And with and Hibbing got the races done pretty quickly last year on a regular basis, but it's still so far to go. People are leaving. They just don't have that culture. And people, so Brad mentioned, he goes, well, here's the deal. I mean, I think the ticket prices, the pit prices, that's all built right in. So it's not about money. The tracks, let's be honest, I'm not trying to hammer on any promoters, but they've gotten way out of hand with their pit passes. And their comeback is, oh man, well, we got to create some revenue somehow, right? Promote, okay? Promote, right? Quit gouging everybody, right? And not going out and actually promoting and trying to get new people there, okay? So quit with this, right? You can lower the cost of that. And quite honestly, I think that if they raised the grandstand fee a couple bucks or whatever and said, look, you now have full access. If you want to go down, walk around the pits, meet some drivers, great, go do it. I think that'd be a great thing. And we talked about this last week, Bert, is, if you, for example, let's see, you as a race fan, if you were to bring a new person to the track that's not a race fan, they don't know anybody, quite honestly, as much as I love racing, they'd be kind of bored. If they didn't have anybody to cheer for, cheer against, they're like, well, it's just cars going in a circle, right? It's like, I don't get it. It's not exciting. But if they have a chance to meet some drivers, see some behind the scenes stuff, it really enhances the whole thing, and it creates that culture, creates that vibe. So I think Jeff had a good idea, whether it's a pre-race party or just getting the fans down there before the races. I don't see a downside. I think it's necessary.
And you talked about, where the pit area is located. Shawano Speedway, obviously it's a half-mile track, so most people park inside. But now, they still have parking inside the track, but there's also parking outside the track. But the unique thing about the setup is the parking is directly behind the grandstands. So, I mean, it's fenced off, but drivers and fans can speak to each other throughout the racing program because they're just separated by a fence. So, fans can watch the drivers and pit crews work on their race cars and stuff like that. There's I would say probably 10 to 20 spots that are within range like that. Then the rest are a little bit down a ways, but so that accomplishes a few things. Because pretty much all the late models park outside the track, and so that got all the big haulers out of the infield, which makes the viewing better for the fans. So that was a good thing. And as I stated, it allows the fans and drivers to interact throughout the entire racing program, which is kind of cool. And that
could be a little dangerous too.
Well, yeah. And
Terry Casey comes back, he might have to wear a helmet to fit him. I don't know.
And so it's a unique setup, and it kind of happened by mistake because I can't remember what year it was, but they got a lot of rain, so no cars could park in the infield, so they parked cars back there, and it's like, hey, this is kind of a cool deal. So they just continued to park cars back there. Like I said, it made the viewing better because it got the big haulers out of the infield.
Yeah, I think Viking Speedway and Alexandria should do the same. I mean, I think everybody's in the infield, but they get some of them big haulers out back or off to the side or whatever. It makes it a lot easier to see. And yeah, that's just a great deal. I got to get there. I'd be interested to see that. But, just a good topic there from Jeff. And, fans, if you have any questions or if you have any comments and feedback, hey, shoot it over to us. Shoot it to me or Bert personally, or shoot it to to the One to Go Show Facebook page. Text us, whatever you got to do. It's always fun to kind of banter a little bit on some ideas some of the fans have. So how about a recap from Speed Weeks? We had the final week of Speed Weeks this last week down at the big half mile down in Volusia. Before we do that, a quick shout out, Brad Parson, Ag Solutions, a racer himself, late model guy also. But, you know, we talked about chemicals, right? You know, we talked about no news. I haven't seen anything from East Bay on any DQs for tire softener. Probably coming. I mean, usually we hear something. Usually somebody's DQ'd at East Bay because the right chemicals produce better results. Well, it's the same thing here with Brad Parson, right? The right chemicals applied to all your agricultural needs, different seasons, different products. He's got a lot of stuff, is going to yield you better results. It's going to make you more profitable, higher yields, and it's just going to make for a better 2023. So get a hold of Brad Parson and he'll take good care of you. So Volusia, they ran, what they have here? They had 6 nights scheduled, right, of late model action. One night, of course, got rain. Mother Nature finally bit them and they got one in. And remember at East Bay, Rockets went undefeated. They swept the whole deal at East Bay. They come into night number 1 at Volusia. Hudson O'Neill makes it 3 in a row. Basically, it's like, dude, this guy is legit fast right now. T-Mac won night 2. Night 3, Bert, they did that Oprah Winfrey, you get a gator, you get a gator, you get a gator, you get a gator. And Brandon Overton won, and they asked him about the win. And he's like, well, I mean, it's a split field. I mean, it's not really a win. He acknowledged that, okay? T-Mac won the second one. The third one, Hoosier Tire won that one. I'm not sure if you saw that third feature. It's like everybody that got the lead got a flat tire. There was some debris on the track from one of the big block wrecks, and I think there was like 5 or 6 flat tires. One guy had 2 flat tires. Bad deal. And Smokey, Chris Madden, he got it done. Bobby Pierce won night number 4, and then the finale there, Bert, race of the year candidate. I mean, it was incredible. That one Pierce won. Brandon Overton kind of did the Olay. I don't remember if you saw that. He moved over. It's one of those deals. He got in the lap traffic and he just picked wrong, and Bobby Pierce made him pay. So talk a little bit about the finale, because the racing was, I gotta be honest, I think that's about the best I've seen at Volusia in a long time. I thought it was pretty darn good racing down there. But that finale, Bert, would you say that was the top race that you've seen this year?
It was one of the top races. Where was that other one? Was that the Wild West Shootout?
There was one at Dado. That was good down there too.
But yeah, I mean, the track was very racy, and I saw some comments on Facebook from some people. It's like, see what happens when you listen to the drivers and don't get the track so, you know, a muddy mess. But yeah, I mean, it was very racy. I mean, obviously, if you go from 23rd to 1st, it's got to be a racy track. Well, RTJ, I think, advanced a lot of spots too.
20th to 3rd. Yeah, 20th to 3rd for RTJ. So a lot of passing in that one. And it turned out that was Hudson O'Neill's first ever World of Outlaw sanctioned late model feature win. Now, what's cool about that, Bert, is his dad, right? The real deal, Don O'Neill, his first ever World of Outlaw A-main win was the Volusia finale at Speed Weeks. I don't remember what year it was. So both of their first wins and in the World of Outlaw action were the finale at Volusia during Speed Weeks. So I do have a trivia question for you, Bert. A little trivia for you. So Hudson O'Neill, as it turns out, was the 100th different driver to win a World of Outlaw A-main in the late models. Okay. Who was the first and where was it?
I'll say Billy Moyer.
Larry Phillips.
Okay.
Larry Phillips. And what's cool is, I don't know if this was the car, but Rick Popovich won a Wissota national title. And I believe he bought one of Larry Phillips' cars. I don't know if it was this one or not, but it was 1988. April 22nd, 1988 that he wanted. So that might have been the same car. Somebody knows that if the car that Rick Popovich bought and won a Wissota national title with was this car, that would be super cool. Do you know what track that was at?
I do not know.
Williams Grove, of all places, sprint car country. Excuse me. So here's the other thing. So the Rockets, right? They struggled bad at the beginning of the year. Terrible, right? I mean, literally, what was it, 15-ish, right around that neighborhood? Straight wins between Votto and like the early part of Speed Weeks, right? Longhorn flat out dominated. I mean, they were on fire. Did you happen to see who's been in the Rocket 1 pits for the last few weeks? Did you happen to see? A couple different people.
I didn't see, but I mean, was it Cody Mallory?
That's one of them. Do you know who the other one was?
No.
The old voodoo child.
Oh, I did
Scott
see a
Bloomquist.
picture. I did see a picture of him talking with Mark Richards.
So here's the deal, right? It seems to me that everywhere Cody Mallory goes, it's like he has pixie dust and he sprinkles it on and bam, the car is instantly fast, right? But Cody Mallory was with Scott Bloomquist for a very long time. So I would say the lion's share of what he learned was from Scott Bloomquist, one of the best to ever strap in a dirt late model.
Now, was Cody Mallory the one who got hauled away from a track in handcuffs 2 years ago?
Probably, but I guess I don't know that for sure. If somebody knows that, post in the comments. I could. I'm not sure.
Because that's when he was associated with Scott Bloomquist, because it popped up. That memory popped up on my Facebook page.
Well, there you go. That must have been then.
Yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, he seems to have a lot of success with whatever driver he's working with.
Well, he was with Jimmy Owens, right? I mean, in the year he was with Jimmy Owens, just 3 years ago or whatever, Owens won the Lucas points by like 400 points or some crazy thing. I mean, he just absolutely murdered everybody. Then at the end of the year, they part ways. Cody Mallory decided he wanted to jump and go do something different. Seems like he's always bouncing around, so I'm not sure the story there. But it's like everywhere he went. He went with Bobby Pierce. He got fast. He's with Garrett Smith. Garrett Smith wins the Dirt Track World Championships. It's like, what? How'd that happen, right? So everywhere he goes, bam, instantly fast. This comes back to the conversation we had from Brad, or the question we had from Brad. Does chassis brand matter? Clearly not, right? It's who's tuning on the chassis, who's making the right adjustments. And I'm telling you, that Cody Mallory effect, could we see some kind of a marriage there, Bert, before the end of the year with Rocket, Cody Mallory, Scott Bloomquist, maybe turning some laps in a Rocket car, doing some testing when he gets back to a little bit more healthy? What do you think?
Anything is possible. I mean, obviously, if there's success, you always want to try to repeat that success. So you do whatever you have to do to repeat that success.
I tell you what, the guy knows how to drive. He knows how to tune. So a little reckless speculation there. Maybe we'll see old Scott Bloomquist in a Rocket. I don't know. But I tell you what, that Rocket 1 right now has been dominant. Before we jump into our top 10, big block modifieds. Go ahead, Bert.
I mean, talking about Bloomquist, what the surprising thing is that, Shirley's racing a Bloomquist car. He looks a lot better in the Bloomquist car than he does in his other chassis.
He does. You're right. Them Bloomer cars on the big half miles, they were good last year, right? Fergie, Dale McDowell, right? Even Bloomquist was fast at Bristol. So there's something with that, maybe. I don't know, Brian. You're right. Brian Shirley seemed to find a good fit. It'll be interesting to see if he runs that car a little bit more. I don't know, but he sure struggled. And what the other car's a Rocket, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, he struggled in that one, but he did look good in that Bloomquist car. Again, chassis brand. Maybe it matters, maybe not. Not really sure. Big block mods, Bert, they were there.
Well, before we go to the big block mods, I was just reading this. Did you read that Shane Clanton set some sort of milestone in career World of Outlaw starts.
I don't remember the number, but I know he has the most, right? He's
and well, then they apparently in an interview they brought that up to him. And he said, "Well, I don't consider 2 of those starts because I had to take emergency provisionals, so I don't consider those starts."
Right? Nice. I gotta agree. It's like we don't. I remember back in the day, Bert, where you had a feature event had 20 cars. That's what it was. If you had to make the show, sorry, if you got 20, if you did not make it in, you got to watch the feature. Try again next week. And now it's like 20, 24 cars, 26 cars, 28 cars. It's like, what are we doing here, right? I mean, we do not need to let everybody into the show. Instead of doing the emergency provisionals at these, boost up the start points just a little bit so they don't have to go out there and race for free. They don't need to race the feature. Give them their start points. Too bad, so sad. It is what it is. And yeah, it's kind of a crazy deal. Should we do the top 10 super late models first and then jump over to the big block mods? Not really much on the big block mods anyway. Mad Max McLaughlin night 1, and then my pick, old Matt Williamson, Team Canada, 2 last lap passes for the win on the final 2 nights. So,
well,
Team
I
Canada.
I did pick Williamson too for one race, the race that got rained out.
Attaboy. It's a good night to pick them, though. That's a good night to pick them. So, top 10 super late models, Bert. We talked about, we kind of did a little bit of a pecking order here earlier in the year prior to Speed Weeks. And now we've got, there's been 20 plus shows ran in dirt late model action, super late models. Do you have a top 10 written down yourself?
I have a top 10 based on Speed Weeks.
Why don't you go ahead and you say your top 10 and sell it to me? Tell me why you have your top 10 the way you do. Maybe you don't have to go on everybody, but share a little bit on your top 10. I'll share a little bit on my top 10.
Okay. Now this is based on Speed Weeks, nothing with the Wild West shootouts or any of those.
Okay, you skipped Vado. Vado. Okay, I added, because I went by the whole year, so I did add Vado into mine. But that's okay. You can just go off of Speed Weeks. That's fine.
Okay. Oh, because based on Speed Weeks, I don't have Superman in the top 10. So.
Oh, Mike. It's Bert Lehman, BERTLEHMAN. All the hate mail goes to him. No Superman in the top 10. Yeah, if you just go off of Speed Weeks, I'd be curious to see though, because I think he'd still be maybe on the back end of that. But who do you got? What is your top 10? You all start at 10, start at 1?
Obviously, I have Hudson O'Neal number 1. I think that's self-explanatory. T-Mac number 2 based on consistency and getting a few wins. I put Overton number 3, RTJ number 4. Devin Moran number 5, Bobby Pierce number 6, basically because he doesn't have as many races as some of the other drivers down in Speed Weeks. Brandon Shepard number 7. He raced pretty much every race down there where some drivers sat out races. I have Max Blair number 8. He had a lot of good runs. And then rounding out the top 10 would be 2 drivers who got wins, Ashton Winger and Ryan Gustin. So that's what I have for my top 10. I have some stats from Speed Weeks that courtesy of Flow Racing. I was able.
Yeah, what do you got?
What's that?
What do you got there?
Like feature wins, Hudson O'Neal had 4, Overton 3, McCready 2, Moran 2, RTJ had 2, and then 8 drivers had 1 victory. Feature earnings, Hudson O'Neal had the most earnings at almost $75,000 for Speed Weeks. Brandon Overton had 66,000, RTJ 64,000, McCready 56,000, Moran 48. Brandon Shepard almost 30,000, and Max Blair $25,000.
Bert, that is crazy. 75,000 is all that the Rocket One team garnered during speed weeks. There's multiple races throughout the year where they go one race and it's $100,000 to win, right?
Right.
Or 75,000 to win, or 50,000 to win. In all the races they did, literally a month down in Georgia and Florida, in running as good as he did, and the total earnings were 75,000. They don't pay very good at speed weeks. It's fun to watch, but it's not the highest paying deal in the world. That's for sure.
Right. I mean, earnings per start, based on 5 or more feature starts, Brandon Overton led the pack with $4,172. And Hudson O'Neal was second with $4,164. Hudson O'Neal had 11 top 5 finishes. Ricky Thornton Jr. had 10. McCready had 10. Overton had 9. Brandon Shepherd had 5 top 5s. Hudson O'Neal had 14 top 10 finishes, followed by Ricky Thornton Jr. and Tim McCready, and Overton with 13. I was surprised, Brandon Shepherd had 12. He was only 2 behind Hudson O'Neal for top 10 finishes. So, Shepherd could get in the top 10, but not get up near the front. So
he ran more shows too.
True. So
I'm looking at it here, Bert. Very close. Ours are very close. So I have the Rocket One team. I got Hudson O'Neal as number 1. I mean, they were very, very strong. They have the most feature wins on the year, 4 wins in 18 starts. I have T-Mac, just like you, at number 2. 10 top 5s, a pair of wins, 17 shows. I mean, just ultimate consistent guy. I mean, probably should have had a win or 2 in there, but he got snake bit by lap traffic at the end a couple times. But T-Mac always rises. At number 3, I got the 20 RT. I got Ricky Thornton Jr. And he's got 3 of his last 6 were in the top 5. He's been very strong. He's your Lucas Oil point leader right now after speed weeks. And 10 top 5s and 17 shows and a pair of wins. So RTJ looking very, very solid. Kind of not all that great at East Bay. He was so happy to get away from East Bay. If East Bay would have been a little bit better, he could have been maybe battling for 1 or 2. Number 4, I kind of flip-flopped with you. I got big sexy Brandon Overton. Overton with 9 top 5s and 3 wins. Number 5, the smooth operator. I got Mike's guy here, Bobby Pierce. Just kidding, Mike. I know it's not your guy. 3 wins on the year. I got 1. What did he get? 1 down in Vado. I think he got 1 down there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 1 down there. So Pierce, he didn't run most of the speed weeks. He ran Volusia and Vado is what he ran. But in the first couple nights down there at the Sunshine Nationals, he expired 2 motors. So that was just a bad deal for him all around. But Bobby Pierce, a very versatile driver and a guy that I personally, Bert, I would buy a ticket to an event just to see him race. At number 6, I'm going to go with Superman Jonathan Davenport. Now, if I didn't have Vado in here, he wouldn't be number 6. I think he'd still be in the top 10, but he wouldn't be number 6 because, so looking at Davenport, he has 7 top 5s in 17 shows, but 5 of those top 5 were at Vado. Okay. So
yeah, I mean,
he only has,
if I was including Vado, he would definitely be in the top 10.
Yeah, and because he won the first 3 at Vado,
right,
and then he led the next 3, if you remember correctly, and lost all 3 of them. He faded. So then he just he might as well just skip speed weeks. That is not his deal. I don't know what it is, but speed weeks he should just regroup, go down there, watch, go to the beach, drink some beer, whatever he wants to do. Skip speed weeks because you're gonna see Superman back when the regular season starts here post speed weeks. I don't think we're going to see the speed weeks version of Jonathan Davenport. Number 7, Smokey Chris Madden. Only 7 shows, but 4 top 5s and a win. He really only ran Volusia. That's all he ran. He ran the World of Outlaw events, and I think he did run one other event in there. I think the first night Well, he did. He ran that split feature night kind of just as a little precursor before the World of Outlaw stuff. But Madden right now, isn't he leading the World of Outlaw points? I believe he is.
Yes.
So obviously, when it came to the World of Outlaw events, he performed at a high level. He's leading the points, and I think that he's a guy to watch all season long. At number 8, I have Devin Moran. He started out so strong down there, Bert. He won a pair of them right away down at the Sunshine Nationals. I'm like, it's going to be the same mailman. It's going to be the same Moran. And then he just kind of went to sleep. Now, now with that said, 2 of his last 3 though on the podium, he's so good at Volusia. He's really, really good at Volusia, but he struggled through the lion's share of speed weeks. But Moran, that up and down guy, he's good on the half miles. I don't know what his deal. He's struggling a little bit on the small stuff. At number 9, another guy you had in the top 10, I think you had him 9 as well, Air Force Ashton Winger. Yep. He kind of skipped some of the super late model stuff, ran the crate, then he went to East Bay. I think he won one, I believe, at Golden Isles, didn't he? Is that where he won one? Or Bubba? He won one of those prior to East Bay.
Yeah, I can't remember which one.
But he looked pretty sporty. He did have some nights in there, Bert, where he didn't even make the feature. So he's like a high highs, low lows guy. But Winger, if he can just kind of keep his composure, he's got the speed. And at number 10, reluctantly, Bert, I got the B5. I got Brandon Shepard in the top 10. He's got the most shows. He's got 24 shows, and the next driver with the next most shows has 18. So he's got way more shows than everybody else. 0 wins. No wins for Brandon Shepard, 9 top 5s in total, and only 4 podiums, and 3 of them were thirds. So are you shocked that in 24 events that Brandon Shepard has not found victory lane yet?
A little bit. You would have thought that he would have found victory lane by now. Sorry, I got to plug in my phone. I got the low battery warning. So, all right, we're all good now.
And we're talking about it, and it's like, okay, well, Shepard's on Integras, and maybe that was the difference. But I believe Youngins is on Integras too, and he kind of had some speed. I mean, he didn't win any or whatever, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure what the deal is there, but he's missing something. Is it a confidence thing?
Well, I mean, maybe it could also be the fact that, when he was driving the Rocket One car, I mean, all he had to focus on was driving, where now, he's, kind of running, he's working with rigs, I don't know what exactly their deal is, but, when you also have to pay the bills, things change a little bit, as you probably lived through in the past.
I did. It's a little easier when somebody else is paying for it. I can promise you that. It's one of those things. I mean, how far into the season do you think we could go before Brandon Shepard gets in? Will Brandon Shepard get a win in the month of March? By the end of March, will he get a win?
I'll say yes. I mean, I think because by then the Lucas schedule and Outlaw schedule they'll be going their separate ways. So the competition will be a little bit less at some of the races. I mean, you're still going to have some top-notch drivers, but not as many top-notch drivers.
Right. And I'm a B-Shep fan. I mean, he's a class act. I like him. I want to see him win races. I mean, it's good for the sport when Brandon Shepard is seeing victory lane. Hopefully he can turn it around and get that B5 zinging back up front where he belongs. So, Bert, let's jump into our weekly picks. No picks this week. There's really not much racing going on. I was going to try to maybe do some mini stock stuff or go-karts or something, but Jeff didn't really want to. So we'll just talk about our standings here. Old Kurt here. Kurt, newcomer to the group at 27 points. He's got the lead, 4-point lead over yours truly. The old 71A here running second at 23. And Jeff's at 21. Mike and Brad are at 20. Mike got a little health issues in the hospital. Get well soon there, buddy. Kent is at 19. Dan is at 14. Bert, you're at 13. So you're there. You're sneaking. I don't want to wake the sleeping giant. And Carl's in double digits at 11. So no picks this week, but we're going to have a full slate of picks coming up in the following week. We'll have them to you. So, Bert, let's jump into the last lap. Brought to you by Zuli's Race Engines. And primary, this guy builds a ton of engines, a lot of them in the Wissota region, but he can build engines for anything, IMCA, USRA, you name it. The one thing they all have in common is if there's Zuli Race Engines there, they're competing for wins. They're winning races. They're winning championships. Not only do they win races, which takes horsepower, peak performance, but to win championships, that's got to be durability, right? So they got the combination of both. They have the full package. If you can't beat them, join them. Zuli's Race Engines. Get a hold of Frank. He'll take good care of you. So a couple things here. Let's go with a little who's hot, who's not. We talked a little bit. We can keep this kind of quick here. But do you have somebody, I mean, if I said, Bert, who is just scorching right now, who do you got?
Oh, obviously Hudson O'Neal.
I'm gonna agree with you there, Huddy, but I'm gonna put T-Mac on that deal because I tell you what, he's the prototypical points guy that is always in the conversation, but nobody hotter than the Rocket One right now. Who's not?
I am going to go with Superman. Speed Weeks is his kryptonite.
You're a hater, man. You're a hater. Bert is a Superman hater.
I'm not.
Okay.
I have a Superman door panel hanging up in my man cave.
I tell you what, Speed Weeks is definitely his kryptonite. You know, I'm gonna go with Tanner English. A guy that at the end of the year last year, I mean, he turned it on. I think he got second in the World of Outlaw points last year. Looking at his results, Bert, Tanner English right now, 17 shows, one top 5, one in 17 shows. Another guy here, the O Show, Jimmy Owens, 16 shows, 0 top 5s.
Wow.
Right?
And I don't know if it was Saturday's race or Thursday's race, but yeah, I mean, he got lapped, and you just don't see that too often.
No, and he's got 5 nights where Owens didn't even make the show. 5 nights in 16 races. I mean, if I said in 16 races, Jimmy Owens is going to have 5 DNQs and 0 top 5s, you'd call me a liar. You'd be like, you're out of your mind. That ain't going to happen. What are you talking about? Owens struggle bus right now. Hopefully he can turn it around. And Shane Clanton, Bert, 12 shows. He's got 0 top 5s and a pair of DNQs as well. So a couple guys here. Speed Weeks were not their friend. Speed Weeks is over. Now they have a little bit of time here to regroup. They got a couple weeks off, and we'll see if some of these drivers can turn it around. So let's jump into let's go down to the desert. So there was some racing down at Casa Grande again, and Don Shaw decided to kind of sponsor up a couple late model events down there. And I thought maybe he was going to win one down there earlier this year when he had kind of that early thaw deal they had going, but he doubled up this past week, winning both nights in the 42, and a couple other northern guys that were down there. Josh Zimpel, a driver that ran really good at the early thaw, Bert. I'm excited to see him this season, to see how he can progress. He got 5th on night 1 and 8th to 2nd on night number 2. So 2nd year late model driver. Keep an eye on him. And then another driver that made the trek down there, does a lot of traveling. I've seen him in a lot of places. Larry Fitzsimmons, 6th night 1 and 5th to 30. Got on the podium night 2. And little side note there, I'm not sure what Zimpel and Shaw have, but Larry Fitzsimmons this year got a Longhorn from Wells and looked like he ran pretty well with it. So it'll be interesting to see what he can do up in Wissota country. So let's head down to the big track, Daytona International Speedway. This is Brad's favorite segment, huge NASCAR guy. So this is sponsored by Brad. And I tell you, check out Brad. He actually builds some cool, like you do the die casts. You guys should actually partner up because you do the die cast and he does some really cool like he makes his own haulers and sells them. Kind of a cool deal.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've seen those. Yes.
Yeah, but so he's not a NASCAR fan. So I give him a little love, give him a little grief. What stuck out to you between the trucks, the Xfinity Series, or the Cup race, the Daytona 500?
Well, I watched most of the truck race because Ty Majeski, I wanted to watch him race. If you haven't listened to the show before, he's from Seymour, Wisconsin, which is only like 45 minutes from where I live. So it's kind of cool to see somebody. And I've interviewed him in the past, and he's been on the cover of Full Throttle magazine. So I've followed his racing career, and he qualified on the outside pole, and he officially finished sixth. He was mixing it up with the top drivers. Unfortunately, rain came, and I think the race was cut, 20 laps short or something like that because of rain. So he didn't get
but there was a caution that brought out the rain, but there was a caution at the same time that the rain came.
Yeah.
So just wanted to point that out. There was a multi-car caution.
Yeah. But a sixth place is, a good finish in the big scheme of things. I didn't watch very much of the Xfinity race, but I did watch the end of it, and I was rooting for Sam Mayer because he's from Wisconsin. He races for Dale Earnhardt Jr. And he was running second late in the race, but then he got caught up in the melee at the end, and he's the one who actually landed on his roof and was sliding down the track.
Right.
And his official finish was 27th. So those are the Wisconsin. There may have been a couple other Wisconsin drivers, but those are the two most well-known drivers from Wisconsin.
Right. And Zane Smith won the truck. Austin Hill in the 21 won the Xfinity, and then one for the dirt guys, right? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. winning the Daytona 500. So we're going to claim him. You run some sprint cars. He's a dirt guy. So great to see him win that. And a shout out, of course, Amber Balkin as well. Mike Balkin's daughter. She actually got sixth, I believe, in the ARCA race there. So a good performance for Team Canada there as well.
Did you see the video on Facebook of Stenhouse taking the trophy into Waffle House?
I did not. You're gonna have to send that to me.
Him and some
first,
of the
you got
members.
You got a friend request me. Hey, you got to we're not Facebook friends. You don't love me anymore. So you're gonna have to friend request me and then send that to me.
And him and I'm assuming some of his crew members took the trophy into Waffle House, and then he carries it in, sets it on the table, and he's kind of looking at the waitress and the cooks and stuff, and he goes, "We're hungry." And then they said, "Are you the winner?" He goes, "Yep, I'm the winner." And then they started clapping and congratulating him. So it was kind of cool. It was several years. Well, when Denny Hamlin won, Joe Gibbs took the trophy to. It wasn't Waffle House. It was a different restaurant.
Okay. So, share that on the One to Go Show page for people to see. Share that on the.
I'll see if I can find it again.
Nice. So a little news from XR Barry Braun and the crew. So last year was the first year of the XR Super Series, and this year they're actually having a point fund. Last year, remember, they did the double down. Like if in both the last. I guess 2 years they've had it, but last year they had the series where they did the double down in Vegas. They're not going to Vegas. So they're having a $300,000 point fund, Bert, $75,000 to the winner, $3,000 for 24th. If I'm correct on this, I believe this series is only 10 races. So
I was just going to ask you, how many races is this? Because it's not that many this year.
No. So 10 race series for 75 large. That's got to be, when you look at the numbers of how many races per what they're paying for the championship, that's a pretty good payday. 3 of those races, Bert, pay $100,000 to win. And noteworthy, of course, they rearranged everything, and the drivers had to get on them because with all the money in Lucas and all that, they decided they're not going to go head to head with the World of Outlaws or with Lucas Oil like they have in years past. So the XR Super Series, things looking up, looking in the right direction. So modifieds here, Bert. The Advantage RV Modified Tour, which has been just a staple in the Wissota region for over a decade now, not going to take place in 2023. Ruben decided that they're going to take a year off, but Benji Fromke, who has the Rebel Midwest Mod Tour, and along with Scott Vince, and now it was the Steffa Street Stock Tour, now it's the Dirt Race Central Street Stock Tour. They're going to have the Moonshine Modified Tour, and it's a condensed version of the Advantage RV Mod Tour. There's going to be 3 swings in Western Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. So the Wisconsin stuff, the stuff over in our neck of the woods, your Grand Rapids, Proctor, Ashland, not on the schedule this year. Going to see if maybe we can make something happen. But the Moonshine Modified Tour taking over. I was kind of hoping that, I like tours as a fan, not necessarily a big fan of them as far as the longevity of the sport, but nonetheless, we have one. So, late model race, Bert, up in Hibbing, Puka is going to be super excited about this one right here, okay? So, KME, which is Pat Capella, Capella Machine Equipment. I think that's what it is, Capella Machine Equipment, but KME is what it is. He goes by KME. That guy over the last decade, Bert, longer probably, has spent an obscene amount of money. I mean, he has helped a ton of drivers in the Northland. He's partnering up with Kivy Brothers Trucking and they're going to host a 5,000 to win Wissota late model event at the Hibbing Raceway on July 29th. So that's kind of a cool thing. Mark your calendars for that one. It's going to be fun. But Hibbing Raceway, call Ogilvy, right? Because Ogilvy, who's decided they're going to run some late model shows this year, Bert, they have July 29th is one of the dates that they plan to run late models. So hopefully they call them and they can be like, hey, we're going to have a 5,000 to win race. And I'm sure when Nate and the guys see that, they'll probably realize that, hey, let's give our guys a chance to go race for some money. Hopefully they cancel that one or move it or do something with it. And speaking of Hibbing, Dirt Race Central, the official streaming platform of the One to Go show, they are going to be streaming all the races at the Hibbing Raceway in 2023. Bert, that was my home track, my hometown. I have a lot of friends up there, and I'm super excited to be able to catch that racing action each and every week. So, little sprint car stuff here, Bert. Did you see what the High Roller Sprint Car Tour has going on in 2023?
No, I did not see.
They're gonna roll the dice, so to speak, and they're gonna have the Durst dice roll. Okay, so and this is Kyle Larson's series, the High Roller Sprint Car Tour. So what they're gonna do is the pole sitter, right, is going to be able to go out there and he can take a pair of dice and roll the dice if he chooses to. Doesn't have to. Okay, it's optional. The driver can be like, hey, I'm going to take the pole, I'm going to take it. If he rolls the dice, whatever it ends up with, anywhere between 2 and 12, is his or her, but his probably in sprint cars, new starting position. Okay, so if they win from that spot, let's say a driver was going to start pole and decided to start 12th instead, and they win, it's $1,000 for every position that you move back. So that'll essentially another $12,000 on top of the winnings. So kind of a unique way to create a little bit of a buzz and excitement, and kind of cool to see them doing some different stuff. So Bert, a little bit on the rumor mill here. I had a few rumors coming across the board. These are rumors. This is I got some pretty good sources, but if you have more facts than this, go ahead and share in the comments. So Ben Hillman, who took a year or two off, second generation driver, super stock driver. He was a big thorn in the side to Jesse Radetsky last year. Turns out he's going to be making the switch to modifieds in an MB custom A-mod this year. I think maybe the primary sponsor, Champ Pans. I wonder if Jesse maybe bought him a modified to get him the hell away from him so that he can get back to dominating at the Red Cedar Speedway. And speaking of modified guys, I was told, and I don't know if this is true or not, but the 81 Ashley Anderson, who ran a little bit in the late model division last year, I was told, and this is all rumor mill here, that his primary focus in 2023 is going to be in the WISSOTA late model division. Not sure if he's going to field a mod or not, but look for a little bit more of Ashley Anderson in the late model.
I would love to see that. I loved watching him in a late model.
I love watching him in anything. The only time I did not like watching Ashley Anderson is when I watched twice. He's a wheel. He kind of pisses me off a little bit because he drove right around me at the Red Cedar Speedway, a place that I never won at. Like I led, I drove up to the front, I got the lead, and at last corner, just the way Ashley Anderson does, he comes carving around me on the high side and beat me by a nose piece to the line at the Red Cedar Speedway. And then at the legendary 100, me and him had a hell of a battle, and he got the better of me in lap traffic there, and he parked in Victory Lane. I got second. So the only time I don't like watching him is when he's ahead of me on the racetrack. Other than that, as a fan, he's one of my favorite drivers to watch. Another guy here, and I'm not sure on this one either. I've seen some posts. I saw some buzz on his Facebook page. Looks like Jake Tim might be following the US MTS Mod Tour and trying to take another one of those $100,000 paydays back to Southern Minnesota this year. So keep an eye on one of the big highlight reel guys from Southern Minnesota. Bert, veteran driver. I got a little birdie told me this. I had somebody shoot me a message on Facebook. Rumor has it, this is the 50th year of racing for Tim McMahon. So McManimal, a former WISSOTA late model national champion, year number 50, probably going to be more on that in just a little bit of time. And then Danny Vangbert, who was the WISSOTA national late model rookie of the year last year. He drives one of the KME cars. He was the lone KME car in a Rocket last year. He's making the switch to an MB custom for the WISSOTA stuff, but rumor has it that he purchased the Rocket and he owns that himself and is gonna, and KME actually furnished an open late model motor, and he's gonna run some of the open late model stuff within our region with his Rocket car. So a little bit of news there in the late model world. But let's get to 3 bold predictions to close this thing out, Bert. So off the board. So 3 bold predictions. Bert and I are doing this every week. I stole this right from Score North, from Purple Daily. Purple, Bert's favorite color here. So proud of you, Bert. I'm absolutely proud of you. But I took that from a podcast I listened to on football. But we're gonna pick 3 racing related predictions. Something that it either yes did happen or no did not happen. Not something that's an opinion type deal. And then we're gonna keep track, and we're gonna call ourselves out if we get it right. We're gonna call ourselves out if we get it wrong. So Bert, you had a couple come off the board this week. So you said that less than 20 cars would finish the Daytona 500. I believe it was 18. So you got that one correct. There was a big wreck at the end that wadded up a whole bunch of them. So like half the field was gone in one wreck. So that's Daytona, right? You said that Mike's boy, Jonathan Davenport, was going to go winless in Florida during Speed Weeks. You are correct. And you also said that Smokey Chris Madden was going to win 2 of the features at the high flying half mile. You got that one wrong. That's a big L burger there. That you did not get that one correct. I said that T-Mac was going to win the Big Gator. Not only did he win the Big Gator, Bert, he was the first driver to win the Big Gator at Speed Weeks at Volusia in multiple classes. Quite a few years ago now, he won it the big block mods as well. Now we have one that's up for debate. I said that there would be a multi-car crash in the final 3 laps of all 3 races at Daytona in the 3 big series. Okay, in the Xfinity race, absolutely. The Cup race, the Daytona 500, absolutely. In the truck race, they didn't make it all the way to the end. Now, I did not say that it would be in the final 3 scheduled laps, right? I said it'd be in the final 3 laps. Now, I believe that there was a big crash. Yellow comes out, rain comes during the yellow, and that essentially qualifies it for being a wreck, a multi-car wreck in the final 3 laps of the race. Would you agree or no?
I'll give you that one.
All right, we'll take that one. So with that said, Bert's still batting 500. 15 right, 15 wrong, 3 still on the board. With that one there, I'm at 10 correct, 19 incorrect, and 4 still on the board. So you're batting 500. I am not batting 500. I didn't do the numbers here on the percentage, but it's not 500. So this week's predictions, Bert, we got 3. Okay. Why don't you go ahead? What is your first prediction this week?
All right, my first one, and I had this written down before the show, but I'm not a hater. Superman will win the Lucas Championship.
I'm going to go that theme with you. So Superman, Jonathan Davenport, Bert's pick is going to be the Lucas Oil Champion. Okay. I can see that. He's really good. He's good at Eldora, right? So I'm going to go along that line, but have a little curveball here. The driver leading the Lucas Oil points going into the Dirt Track World Championship finale at Eldora will not win the Lucas Oil Championship in 2023. Therefore, there'll be some drama. So you're going to have somebody leading the points. They're going to be on top of the chart coming in. Might even be a healthy lead. Might be a big one, right? But they're not going to be the winner because the top 4 drivers in that deal, kind of like NASCAR Chase, whoever finishes highest in that deal, excuse me, man, oh man, whoever finishes highest in that deal wins. And I'm going to say right now, whoever is leading the Lucas Oil points going into that race is not going to become the champion in 2023. What do you got?
Okay. All right. My second one, I will say Dennis Erb Jr., who won the Outlaw Championship last year, will not finish in the top 3 this year.
Oh, I was going to say will not win. I would agree with that. Top 3, that's bold.
Well,
right.
Yeah, I could. That's too easy just to say he's not going to win the championship.
Right. So Dennis Erb Jr. will not finish in the top 3 in the World of Outlaw late
in the point standings.
Correct. Okay. I got a couple different ones here. I'm going to go with something we got going on here next week. Assuming this race happens and doesn't rain out or something. Smokey Chris Madden will win $20,000 at Cherokee Speedway's Ginger Owens Memorial on March 5th, Sunday, March 5th, with the Southern All-Stars. So Chris Madden gonna be $20,000 richer after that Sunday showdown in Gaffney, South Carolina.
Okay. I will go with, I don't know what race it is. I believe it's a $15,000 to win race at Florence in March. I will say that Josh Rice will win that race.
That's we're all high on him going into that 75 grand, and he laid an egg, but it's tough to bet against Josh Rice there. So the 15 grand to win deal at Florence, old Josh Rice gonna park at Victory Lane. I'm gonna try to speak something in. Well, you know what? I'm gonna save that one. USMTS not starting this weekend, but the following weekend. Young driver from down in I think Osage, Iowa, runs down at Deer Creek, and Mississippi Thunder. Kid's a stud, both him and his brother. Jim Chisholm will win at least 5 USMTS A mains in 2023. I had a couple other here, but we're gonna save them. I wrote down 6, and I'm like, I wasn't sure which ones to go with, but there you go, Bert. Cough is coming back here, as you can see, but episode 165 in the book. Race fans, I hope you enjoyed it. Mason, of course, is going to post some pictures of some of the drivers we talked about in the Blast of the Past. Follow Mason Aaron's videos. He does great work. Appreciate all the help he gives us. Huge thank you to all of our sponsors. Fans, don't be afraid to give us some feedback. If you have some questions or some thoughts, something you want us to touch on the show, we love to do that. If you have a favorite driver, number 66, right? I have a few. Bert probably has a few, but 66 next week, 166 or 66 for the Blast to the Past. But as always, Bert, always fun talking racing. I'm Ryan Aho. That is the Bert Lehman. Thanks for tuning in to the One to Go Show.